There's something that I noticed. You know, when a baby is still breastfeeding, there comes a time where when they have to be weaned off breast milk. And that is an extreme sport. It can be very difficult to wean a child off of breast milk, because you are conflicted as a parent. You want the child to be nourished, but you also, the child doesn't want to have anything except breast milk. So you don't want them to have breast milk anymore because you want them to outgrow breast milk and move on to solid foods. But you are conflicted. But then it is not a very pleasant process, but it is a necessary process. It is not pleasant, but it is necessary. So here we find God talking to Israel, and he says unto them, I took you from Egypt. And he says, I led you by the way of the wilderness to teach and to humble you. Come on, somebody say separation. If you read the preceding chapter, you will discover that there was a shorter way with which God could have taken them to the land of promise. But there was a time that was needed for God to separate them from what they were accustomed to in Egypt, so that by the time they get to the promise, they understand who they are first, and who God is, and who they are supposed to be, and how they are supposed to behave. So God says, I chose this way, not because I hate you, but because I had to lead you to humble and to teach you. Imagine people who were in slavery having pride issues. Why else would God want to humble them if they did not have issues of pride? They were slaves but still proud. Have you met a person who's suffering in sin but still proud? They need help but they are still proud. And God says, I cannot give the promise to a proud heart because it will become toxic and lethal to you. So I have to take you through this process. There had to be a severance. There had to be a separation. There had to be a breaking away. There had to be a detachment from the familiar. God had to separate them. And he says, so I have to test what is in your heart. I have to take you through this way of the wilderness. He says to them, I want you to get there so that when you have eaten and you are full, see that you do not forget the Lord. Because prosperity will make you forget the Lord. And the God we serve loves us too much to give us too much. He says, so I will take you through the sea so that you realize that you are leaving the one landmass behind and you are stepping into a different. And the amazing thing is that when they stepped into that season, God said, after I have done all of this, there still needs to be one more crossing that needs to happen to take you away from the teaching to graduate into the promise. And it says you have to cross the River Jordan. There had to be a separation of the seasons. There had to be a distinction between the time they were in Egypt and the time they were in the classroom with God being made. Remember what Jesus says in the New Testament. God took them from Egypt and Jesus takes them from fishing, and God takes them to the wilderness and he teaches them there, and Jesus takes them and he says, I will make you And then he says, the end of it shall be the Canaan land, which I'm giving you. And Jesus says, then you shall become fishers of men. There is a process to what we are doing as followers of Christ. First, we have to follow, and then second, we have to be made. I've seen a lot of Abazolane who are refusing to be made because they think they have it all together. Because they came to Christ, they were successful in their careers, in their academics. They already had everything they had wished for in life, and they think there is no need to be made. Let me tell you something. You will never be like Christ unless Christ makes you as he is. You will never be able to understand the procedure of the promise of God unless you go through the wilderness. In the wilderness, they were led, they were not lost. But because they never understood, they kept complaining. How can you bring us out in this place where there's nothing? Because in their minds, they thought they were lost. It takes somebody who is willing to walk the walk with Christ, that they are being made so that you can be ready for what he is making you for. And Peter did not even realize. Three times they came to him and said, man, no, your language. Something about you. He had gone through the wilderness. He had gone through the making. He had been separated from being a fisherman. When you allow the separation from what you know and allow what is Christ to infiltrate you until you get to a place just like Paul, where he says, the life I live is no longer my own, but I don't live anymore, but Christ in me lives. There has to be a separation. In the making process, there is an unlearning and relearning.